Hey everyone, Joe Menza here with another painting video. I just want to show you a few close-ups of the Ron Ranson hake or hake brush. And this is the medium brush. And you notice when I squeeze it like this, I get that nice edge on there. Now a lot of other brushes like this, different brands, they are not trimmed. So you cannot get that flat edge on there. Some of the other things you can do with this brush that I like is you can get that curved. You can paint with the side of the brush and it typically will stay in that position. And then you can rough it up, get rough with it, and you can get that effect for trees and grasses and things like that. So it's a very flexible brush. You can do the corner of the brush, which is good for certain shapes. You've got a lot of flexibility with this brush. That's why we really enjoy it, and why it lends itself really well to landscape painting. Here's the large brush. You can see the moisture content on it. You can see how much it bends, and if we squeeze it out, you can just see it doesn't really look that wet, but look at the amount of water coming out of that. So that is some of the benefits of this type of brush made out of goat hair. And I like to use a water bottle too with my paintings. And here I am just kind of spraying the surface of the paper just to get it wet. You can brush it on too. You can spray it and then brush it. Sometimes if I really want clean water, my water's dirty in my container, I'll go ahead and I'll spray it on. But let's look at how much water on the surface of the paper. I'm going to give it another spray. You really want a good sheen. If you're using 100% cotton paper, it's going to absorb that first layer. So a lot of times I will say, do 3 coats, let it sit. And I'm going to come in with the big spray bottle. I'm going to really load it up now. I want you to see. Let me just brush that in a little bit. So we've got a sheen of water. This is going to be helpful for the wet and wet. And just look close up on the paper. You can see just that little bit of sheen there. And basically that indicates you are ready to start. But I'm going to give it a little bit more. This is 100% cotton arches, 10 by 14. And I just want to give it, is it arches? No, it's actually, I'm totally mistaken here. This is actually 25% cotton. This is Fabriano Studio. But if you're working with arches, you're going to have even more absorbency. So just, try that out. I'm going to go into my palette here. I know a lot of people ask me to show you how I mix on my palette. Really not a lot of mixing here. I mean, I kind of just dab my brush in. And here is some raw sienna with some yellow ochre, and we're just going to brush that on. I'm paint with determination, but be sort of carefree about it. In a way, you don't care how it turns out. Let fate take over a little bit. I want everyone to feel like they're just really enjoying the process. Let the paint hit the paper, paint shapes. Don't look at something and go, I got to paint this, got to turn out, this is going to be something I'm going to sell later. If you paint that way with a more carefree, free attitude, you're going to get that type of painting. You're going to get a painting that you could feel it was enjoyed when it was painted. So I'm coming back in and I'm going to I like to use up sometimes paint that are in my little paint trays here. Using some ultramarine blue, and it's probably dirty, which is fine with me. I want to come in with a sort of I don't know, you want to call it a fantasy type, you can go with the very blue sky. It's really up to you how you want ultimately your piece to look. Now I just gave it a little spray, and I'm coming in. I want to leave a little bit of light coming in from somewhere. It's the light in these paintings that really draw you in, like the moth to the light type thing, and it will draw in your viewers. You want people to look at your art for more than just a split second. Sometimes people will look at, oh, that's a nice picture, and I mean, you can time it 15 seconds, not even. But sometimes when you put atmosphere, things that sort of play upon the mind, people will take a second and they'll say, what am I looking at exactly here? There's something, and it draws you in. So I'm coming in with some darker Payne's gray here and ultramarine blue. The darker we go, the more light it's going to look like we've got coming in from our light source. So it's a very important point. Lighting, I think, is just about everything in the painting. I mean, color tone is important, obviously, and perspective and depth. All of these things will come together eventually. You'll notice in the beginning you'll paint more two-dimensionally. You'll paint sort of flat. And then as time goes on, you'll start to incorporate a little depth. You'll start to see things happen. Don't go for that right off the bat. Just go for, in the beginning, getting the shapes and enjoying paint on paper. That is your first goal. And as you go along, everything will fall into place. One thing a lot of artists that do videos don't tell you is it is going to take a lot of paintings to get to a point to where you feel really good about the end result. I've got a stack next to me of paintings that I can barely lift anymore. Now I'm coming in with some clouds, and I'm using some alizarin crimson on the same brush. Have not washed it yet, unless you saw me wash it and I missed it, but I shouldn't have yet. Now I'm going to come back in. Here's a look. Now I'm washing this brush. This is the medium brush. And I'm going to clean off some of the clouds. I'm taking paint off. I'm thinning out paint and taking it off as well. So you can wash and dab it off on a paper towel. And you'll see, you'll start to get a cloud formation. Now this is just one way to do this. This is one method. Another method is to use a paper towel and dab and take paint off. Another method is I like to do sometimes is I'll throw a little white on there and I'll blend it. It just really depends on what look you're trying to go for. But try different things. That's the whole thing about this is when you go into the painting, I'm going to see what happens here. I want to see what happens if I do this, if X equals Y. And at the end, you'll say, okay, this is what happened. And put the painting away for a little while, look at it later. There's things about it you're going to like. But if you go in and go, okay, this one here, this is the one they're going to hang on the wall. This is the one everybody's going to, wow, jaws are going to drop. It may not be. And of course, the addictive nature of this whole art thing is I can do better on the next one. The next one, I know it's going to be the perfect painting. And that's where the addiction comes in. But hopefully it's a fun addiction. Hopefully you enjoy it. Now you can see as I'm starting to put a little bit of a mountain here. Again, same colors. Want to keep within that theme. And we're taking our brush and spray bottle, and I just want to kind of clean up things a little bit along the horizon line. We've got a mountain, we just kind of put in the distance there. I'm trying to keep the scale a little small this time around. I don't know, I have a habit of making things, I notice myself. I don't know, I have like a certain scale. I don't really change it much. There's times when you want to paint things smaller, larger. I think when you go a little smaller, you can sort of widescreen it epic. It's an epic type thing that you're going to pull in. Sort of a wide vista, panoramic view maybe. So if you start putting everything in big, then you've got sort of this big object in the middle of your screen. Or screen, well, it's on your screen, right? So you put this in and, now you're kind of stuck with this scale that's, 10 to 1, 20 to 1, whatever it is. So if you start off smaller, go in with the medium brush like I'm doing here and just try to keep things down, and you'll come up with a little bit more of a scale here. It kind of gives us a little more room for the sky, a little more room for a foreground, and see what happens, Keep it small. If you put a big giant mountain in the middle, now your details, think about that. your details have to be a little bit more accurate. You go in a little bit smaller of a scale, well, you can kind of get away with things from a distance. Now I'm coming in with everybody's favorite magic trick, and that's the plastic card. So it's kind of scrape down, do it while it's wet. You'll have to kind of experiment with the amount of thickness of paint, and you'll have to experiment with the pressure. You're not really pushing that hard. If it's thick paint, you push down and it starts to move down the paper, then you're kind of doing it right. Dark paint, thick paint, scraping. Try to do it on light. It's not going to be the same. And again, your paper makes a difference too. I find Fabriano 25% Studio, I really like how that scrapes. I feel like the surface. Now, if I go to a 25% cotton, which is a fantastic paper like an Arches, it doesn't, I don't know. It tends to scratch the paper. So you have to be very, very careful. On 100% cotton paper is fantastic. But it's different. So you're going to get a different result. So a lot of people will look at something and go, oh, gee, I want it to come out just like that. But your paper, your paint brands, your brush, your technique, all of those little variables, nobody's going to paint the same painting twice. And that includes really yourself. There's a lot of randomness that goes into that. It's like a snowflake. So notice now I've come in with some darker paint for the shadow areas of this little mountain and a little bit of re-scraping. I tend to do this probably twice, and I'm going to come in with a little bit lighter of a color, hopefully catch a little bit of that sunlight coming off from the back. You'll notice we got a mood going now. I don't know if you're catching that now. We got these clouds and we've got this light from the back, and we're starting to formulate something that is interesting. As you, the viewer, you're looking at it and seeing it sort of coming into, in the view. Okay, I get it now. That's the draw when sometimes, I don't know, some people like to see the painting in the beginning. Do you like to see answer me this in the comments section if you wouldn't mind, because I've been doing this lately. Do you want to see the painting before it's painted, or do you want to be surprised and let it play out? I'm curious. I was watching Bill Alexander, and he mentioned in his video that people wanted to see the painting so that they knew what he was going for beforehand. So that's an interesting question. I bet you we'll get a variety of answers. So now notice I've gone darker. I'm pushing darker with these mountains with the brown burnt umber. We got some burnt umber going and some blue. And I've scraped those areas. So now we're coming back. I've cleaned my brush, trying to get, we don't want this whole thing to be too dark. So burnt umber now, a little bit of light red. And coming down and kind of, now we're moving closer in. We're pulling this down, scraping down. A lot of times I'll go darker with the paint than I really want the color to be, because I know when I scrape it, I'm going to lose like half of the paint. So with this now, we're bringing some closer rock to us, and it's slowly starting to push that mountain toward the back. So if you want to get depth, that's one way to do it. The other way is your mountains can be very light. I'm sure you've seen watercolors where you have a very, very just light blue mountain set off in the back. That works too. Another way you can do it is after you've painted, everything's dry and you want to push things back, you can make up a milky white wash and go over the top. But you got to be careful. You don't want to disturb too much of what's there. So you can kind of do an afterthought toward that issue. Now I'm just coming down here, and I'm probably just going to make some, basic water, let's say. I'm not going to do too much here. We'll make this little mountain area with the sun, the star of the show. One of the things that can be a problem in a painting is if you do a really complicated sky and you do a really complicated foreground, it's just too much. what do you want people to look at? Middle ground? You want the sky to be the star? And when we do early paintings, we kind of get in a habit where we go, I'm going to make this really elaborate sky, and everything on here is just going to be, everything's going to be everything. And really, it shouldn't be. I mean, if you're doing a really complicated foreground and maybe you got a house and this and that, maybe the sky should just be solid color, cloud or two, but not really elaborate. So now I'm putting a little water. I want to keep this light, and we'll build it up a little bit. And we'll come in with a color that I don't ordinarily use, and that's phthalo. It's a red shade by M. Graham. It's not on my palette. There's a reason it's not on my palette. It's a great color, but the color it's so strong. I think Bob Ross might have said something along the lines of it'll ruin your world if you let it, or something along those lines. And he's not kidding. That color is big time. So you'll notice I've sculpted out a little bit more rock to the side. We've got a lighter color, and it's kind of if you can picture the sun coming at an angle, it hits the peaks, and then it hits the peak, medium peak, and then now to the left. And then we got a heavy shadow, so that's behind in the back. So I kind of wing that a little bit. I'm not Mr. Shadow. That's something that'll come with learning. I'm learning all the time, Somebody we were talking about today said, yeah, they didn't really have a style. You know what? You have a style. It's in there. It's in there. You may want more of something that's your own stamp that recognizes your painting. That'll come in time. Exploit what you're doing now. Embrace what you're doing. The little things that you're doing that you don't like, improve on them, but embrace your overall look. Embrace it. Try things that are a little unconventional. And eventually you'll have something, and people will look at your painting and go, aha, boy, that looks like, I see that now, So here's that phthalo color. Woo! That color's, look at it. And you mix that in, boy, it'll take over all the colors on your palette. So I'm using the Frank Clark goat hair brush. And it's not so much that I have to use that. I can use the other one, but it's clean and it's ready to go. And I don't know, the bristles are a little different. So it's kind of become sort of my go-to blender. And using a paper towel like I have now is a good way to clean things up. As long as it's wet, you can, how should I say? You can finagle it. So you can use there's phthalo blue is like phthalo. There's a phthalo green. There's a phthalo. Each one kind of leans toward its own shade. If you use like a phthalo blue straight up, works really good to mix with like grasses and things. But again, I don't keep it on my palette because it's just a crazy color. So here we are zooming in. And you can see the rocks, you can see the light. There's a lot of nice light in there. And here it is framed. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed painting it. And I hope I didn't chit-chat you too much. But please subscribe, leave your comments. Have a good day.